The Forgotten Legacy. The ion storm was getting worse. Dr. Ilara Chen could feel the static electricity building in her hair as she hurried through the narrow passageway, her headlamp cutting through the darkness of the ancient ruins. Sweat trickled down her neck despite the cooling unit in her exosuit. After 3 years of searching, after all the ridicule from her colleagues back on Earth, she was finally close. Status report. The voice of Captain Mercer crackled through her comm unit. Still proceeding, Ilara replied, ducking under a low archway covered in symbols that predated most spacefaring civilizations. The energy signature is getting stronger. Whatever's down here, it's big. You've got 57 minutes before we need to pull out. That storm's intensifying. Ilara ignored the warning. 57 minutes would be enough. It had to be. The ruins of Exarelon Vulii had puzzled Sinorchaeologists for centuries. The civilization that built these massive underground complexes had vanished over 30,000 years ago, leaving behind structures that defied conventional analysis. The materials didn't degrade. The energy systems still hummed faintly. And most frustratingly of all, none of the dozen alien species in the Galactic Concord had been able to activate any of the technology left behind. Theories abounded. The most popular was that the Exarelonians had used some kind of biological encryption, keyed to their extinct DNA patterns. But Ilara had a different theory, one that had earned her nothing but mockery at the Institute. She believed the technology wasn't biologically locked to the Exarelonians at all. The tunnel opened suddenly into an enormous chamber, so vast that her headlamp couldn't reach the opposite wall. Ilara gasped, her breath fogging the inside of her helmet momentarily. As she stepped forward, lights began to activate, not from her movement, but seemingly in response to her presence. "Captain, are you seeing this?" she whispered, the camera on her helmet transmitting everything back to the research vessel in orbit. "Affirmative. What is that at the center?" The lights were spreading outward in concentric circles, illuminating a cathedral-like space, filled with what looked like suspended metallic spheres. But at the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, and on it, "It looks like armor," Ilara said, approaching cautiously. "Or maybe a suit of some kind." The object gleamed with an inner light, shifting colors like oil on water. It wasn't quite solid, not quite liquid, resembling nothing so much as mercury that somehow held a humanoid shape. "Dr. Chen, we're picking up a transmission." Captain Mercer's voice had changed, tension evident. "A Vorkan battlecruiser just dropped out of hyperspace. They're demanding to know what we found." Ilara felt her heart sink. The Vorkan Federation, an alliance of 4 technologically advanced species, had been scouring the galaxy for Exarelonian artifacts for decades. Unlike Earth's purely scientific interest, the Vorkan sought military applications, weapons they could use to expand their already considerable territory. "Tell them it's just another dead end," she said, still moving toward the pedestal. "They're scanning us, Doctor. They'll know that's a lie." Ilara reached the pedestal. The armor, if that's what it was, seemed to pulse in response to her proximity. Strange glyphs on the base of the pedestal began to glow. "Dr. Chen, they're launching shuttles. You need to evacuate now." But Ilara wasn't listening anymore. The symbols on the pedestal had suddenly resolved themselves into readable text. Impossible, since no one had ever been able to translate the Exarelonian language. Yet here she was, somehow understanding perfectly. "The last guardian awaits its wielder. Only the inheritors may bond with the Sentinel. Dr. Chen, the Vorkan are threatening to fire on us if you don't withdraw." Ilara barely heard the captain's panicked voice. The armor was changing, rippling, sections of it thinning and stretching as if trying to reach for her. Against all scientific protocol, against all common sense, she removed her glove and reached out. The moment her fingertips touched the surface, everything changed. The armor liquefied, surging up her arm like a living thing, flowing over her exosuit in a wave of metallic light. Ilara tried to scream but couldn't, not from pain, but from the overwhelming flood of information suddenly pouring into her mind. Images, concepts, memories that weren't hers. She saw stars dying, planets being consumed, a darkness spreading between galaxies. And she saw the Trillonians not as the tentacled beings depicted in theoretical reconstructions, but as creatures remarkable in their similarity to humans. Bipedal, 2 arms, forward-facing eyes. Dr. Chen, respond. Ilara blinked, the visions receding. The armor had completely enveloped her exosuit, conforming perfectly to her body, interfacing somehow with both the suit and her nervous system. She felt stronger, lighter, as if gravity had decreased. Information scrolled across her vision. Atmospheric composition, energy readings, structural analysis of the chamber. "I'm okay," she managed to say, her voice sounding strange even to her own ears. Something happened. The artifact, the Vorkin ships have landed. Captain Mercer interrupted. "They're entering the ruins. You need to hide or get out. Now." But Ilara realized she didn't feel afraid. The armor was feeding her information, showing her pathways through the ruins she hadn't noticed before, revealing hidden chambers and tunnels. "I think I can get out another way," she said. "Don't wait for me. If the Vorkin take the ship, we're not leaving without you," Mercer said firmly. Heavy footsteps echoed down the tunnel she had used to enter the chamber. The Vorkin were coming. Ilara turned toward one of the walls, which the armor was highlighting as a concealed exit. The first Vorkin soldiers entered the chamber. Tall, reptilian creatures in powered armor of their own, carrying weapons that pulsed with energy. They stopped abruptly at the sight of her. "Human," the lead soldier hissed, mandibles clicking in surprise. "What have you done?" Ilara didn't answer. The armor was feeding her combat data now, analyzing the Vorkin weapons, calculating threat levels. She began backing toward the hidden exit. "The Guardian has been activated," another Vorkin said, this one wearing the insignia of a science officer. After all our attempts, there was unmistakable bitterness in the translator's rendering of its speech. "Remove it," the commander ordered Ilara. "Remove the armor immediately." Ilara shook her head. "I don't think I can." She wasn't sure if this was true, but the armor was sending waves of negative feedback at the mere thought. "The High Counselor will want this specimen alive," the science officer said. "The compatibility is unprecedented." The commander raised his weapon. "Human, you will surrender the artifact. The Vorkin Federation claims all Trillonian technology by right of primary discovery." Ilara almost laughed. "We both know that's not how it works," she said. "And we both know this isn't the first Trillonian site you found." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Take her." 2 soldiers advanced. The armor reacted before Ilara could even think, her body moving with a speed and precision she'd never experienced. She sidestepped the first soldier, her hand striking out to disable its weapon with a precise tap. The second tried to grab her, but the armor flowed like liquid between its claws, then solidified, locking the Vorkin's arm in place as Ilara twisted away. "Stop her," the commander shouted as Ilara sprinted toward the hidden exit. Weapon fire erupted behind her, energy bolts sizzling through the air. The armor responded, a shield-like projection forming from her left arm, deflecting the shots. The wall ahead of her, seemingly solid stone, rippled and parted as she approached, revealing the dark tunnel beyond. "Captain," she gasped into her comm as she ran. "I'm heading deeper. The armor it's showing me the way." "We're detecting massive energy spikes from your location," Mercer replied, his voice breaking up. "The whole complex is waking up." Ilara could feel it. The ruins around her were coming alive, systems dormant for millennia reactivating in response to the armor. Lights flared in tunnels that branched off from hers. Doorways unsealed themselves as she passed. "The Vorkin are right behind me," she said. "And I think I know what this place is now." The armor was feeding her understanding along with data. The ruins weren't just a city or an outpost. They were a fortress, A last line of defense against something the Trelawneyans had feared, something they had fought to their last breath. And now, after 30,000 years, that defense system had found a new wielder. Dr. Chen. Captain Mercer's voice was grim. The Vorkin have locked weapons on us. They're demanding we surrender you and the artifact. Ilara emerged into another chamber, smaller than the first, but filled with what were unmistakably control interfaces. The armor guided her hands to specific panels, which lit up at her touch. Tell them. She paused, the armor flooding her mind with tactical options. Tell them the Guardian has awakened, and the Pact of Trelon is in effect. What does that mean? I have no idea, Ilara admitted, but the armor thinks they'll understand. On the screens before her, she could see the Vorkin soldiers spreading throughout the complex, more shuttles landing on the surface. But she could also see something else. Defense systems coming online, ancient weapons charging. The armor wanted her to activate them. It was showing her how to seal the ruins, how to deploy countermeasures that would drive the Vorkin back. All she had to do was give the command. But that wasn't why she had come here. She was a scientist, not a soldier. She wanted to understand this technology, not use it to kill. There has to be another way, she whispered. The armor paused, as if considering. Then new information flowed into her mind, schematics for a vessel, hidden beneath the ruins. An escape route. Captain, she said, making her decision. I can't return to the ship, but I think I can get off planet another way. Doctor, what are you talking about? The ruins, they're not just ruins. They're a base. And there's a ship here, still operational. More Vorkin were converging on her position. The armor was urging her to move. I need you to get our team to safety, she continued. And I need you to get a message to Earth. Tell them the Trelawneyans didn't die out. They left. And they were waiting for someone who could use what they left behind. Waiting for humans. That's impossible. Not for humans specifically, Ilara said, understanding flooding through her as the armor shared more knowledge. For anyone compatible. It's just that. We're the first they found. She pressed her hand to one final panel, and the floor beneath her began to descend, forming a lift that took her deeper into the planet. I'll contact you when I can, she promised. But Captain, prepare Earth. We're not alone out here, and not everyone is going to be happy about what I found. As the lift carried her down into darkness, Ilara watched the Vorkin signals on her display grow more frantic. They were realizing what was happening, that the prize they had sought for so long had awakened, but not for them. The armor tightened slightly around her, almost like a reassuring embrace. Do not fear, Inheritor, a voice spoke directly into her mind, startling her. You are the first, but not the last. Your kind has been found worthy. Worthy of what? Ilara whispered. Of continuing what we began. Of standing against the darkness between stars. Of wielding the light we could no longer carry. The lift stopped, and before her stood a sleek vessel, smaller than she had expected but radiating power. As she approached, it too began to awaken, lights flickering on, systems humming to life. Above, she could sense the Vorkin's frustration turning to anger. Soon, it would become violence. But by then, she would be gone. Captain, she said into her comm, knowing it might be the last time she spoke to another human for a while. Tell Earth. Tell them to look for the others. Others? What others, Doctor? The other Guardians, she said, as the ship's entry ramp lowered for her. They're out there, waiting. And somehow, I think they're waiting for us. The Awakening. 3 months had passed since Ilara fled Xeralon VII in the ancient vessel. 3 months of learning, adapting, and running. The armor, or the Guardian, as she had come to call it, never left her. Even when she slept, it maintained a thin layer over her skin, monitoring her vital signs, filtering toxins, healing injuries she didn't even realize she had sustained. The ship, which responded to her thoughts through the armor's interface, had taken her far beyond mapped space, following coordinates programmed into its systems millennia ago. The Vorkin had pursued it first, but the Guardian's vessel possessed technology that made it virtually untraceable. Phase-shifting drives that moved it partially out of normal spacetime, sensors that could detect pursuit from light years away. Now, as she orbited a small blue-green world in an unremarkable star system, Ilara reviewed what she had learned. The Trillonians hadn't died out. They had evolved. Or perhaps more accurately, they had transformed themselves, ascending to a different state of existence after creating the Guardians as their legacy. But why had the armor responded to her? Why, after rejecting countless alien species, had it chosen a human? Compatibility is not merely physical, the Guardian's consciousness explained in her mind. It had begun communicating more clearly as their bond strengthened. It is also a matter of cognitive resonance. Your species thinks as the creators did. Adaptable, curious, resilient. But the Vorkin are all those things, Ilara countered, watching the alien sunrise from her view screen. They've built an interstellar federation. They build, but they do not dream, the Guardian replied. They advance, but only along predetermined paths. The darkness comes for those who stagnate. Only those who continuously evolve can stand against it. The darkness, the ancient enemy. The armor had shown her glimpses, a force that consumed life, that reduced vibrant worlds to sterile husks. Not a species or an empire, but something more fundamental, a counterforce to creation itself. And according to the Guardian, it was returning. The ship's sensors chimed, alerting her to an approaching vessel. Ilara tensed, preparing for another confrontation with Vorkin pursuers. But the signature was different, smaller, less advanced. Human, she whispered in surprise as the data resolved. That's a human ship. Yes, the Guardian confirmed. One of the colony expeditions. They were not expected in this sector. A colonial survey vessel, far off course, perhaps damaged or lost. Ilara hesitated, torn between revealing herself and maintaining the isolation that had kept her safe these past months. Before she could decide, her ship's communication system activated automatically. Unidentified vessel, a woman's voice crackled through the speakers. This is Captain Maya Okafor of the Earth Colonial Authority vessel Horizon. We are experiencing critical system failures and require assistance. Please respond. Ilara closed her eyes. She couldn't ignore a distress call, especially from fellow humans who had no idea what they had stumbled into. Horizon, this is Dr. Ilara Chen. She paused. What was she now? Scientist? Fugitive? Guardian? I'm aboard a vessel that can assist you, sending docking coordinates. The Guardian's consciousness stirred with concern. Caution, inheritor. The darkness has many eyes. They're my people. Ilara replied silently. I won't abandon them. The colonial vessel was in worse shape than she had anticipated. As it limped toward the rendezvous point, Ilara could see hull breaches sealed with emergency patches, evidence of weapon damage along its port side. What happened to them? She whispered. Conflict. The Guardian analyzed. Energy weapon signatures consistent with Vorkin armaments. A chill ran through Ilara. The Vorkin are attacking human ships now. Why? Perhaps they seek you. Perhaps they seek to prevent what you represent. The two vessels connected, the Guardian's ship extending a docking tube that sealed against the colonial vessel's airlock. Ilara stood at the junction, the armor flowing into a more humanoid appearance rather than the sleek, otherworldly form it often took when she was alone. The airlock cycled, and three figures emerged. A tall woman with close-cropped hair and captain's insignia, a younger man with engineer's markings, and a third figure in a medical uniform. Dr. Chen. Captain Okafor's eyes widened as she took in Ilara's appearance, the armor gleaming subtly in the light. You're the xenorchaeologist who disappeared at Cerilon. The whole Earth fleet has been searching for you. It's complicated, Ilara said, gesturing them inside. What happened to your ship? The three colonists exchanged looks. "We were part of a survey mission to the Epsilon cluster," Okafor explained as they followed Ilara into the Guardian's vessel. All three gasped at the alien architecture, the flowing lines and pulsing lights. "2 weeks ago, we were approached by a Vorkan patrol. They demanded information about you." "Me?" Ilara stopped. "About a human who had stolen what they called restricted technology," the engineer clarified. "When our captain explained we had no knowledge of any such incident, they accused humanity of harboring a fugitive and opened fire. We barely escaped," the medical officer added. "But our comms array was destroyed. We couldn't warn Earth." Ilara felt sick. The consequences of her discovery were rippling outward, affecting innocent people. "How many ships were attacked?" "We don't know," Okafor admitted. "But the Vorkan vessel mentioned something about a quarantine of human space until you were surrendered." "This escalates," the Guardian observed privately. "The servants of darkness move more quickly than anticipated." "Servants of the Vorkan are working for the darkness?" Ilara asked silently. "Not knowingly, but they seek power without understanding its cost. They would use the Guardian's technology to dominate, not protect. Such ambition creates openings the darkness exploits." "Your ship," Okafor was saying, staring at the control interfaces. "This isn't salvaged Srolonian tech. This is actively maintained. And that armor?" "It's a Guardian," Ilara explained. "An ancient defense system created to fight something called the darkness. And for some reason, it's compatible with humans." The engineer approached one of the walls, hand outstretched in wonder. "This material. I've never seen anything like it." "Don't." Ilara started to warn, but it was too late. The moment his fingers touched the surface, the ship pulsed with energy. The wall rippled beneath his hand, and to everyone's shock, tendrils of the same metallic substance that composed Ilara's armor began to spread up his arm. "What's happening?" he gasped, not in pain, but in surprise. "Another inheritor," the Guardian said, its mental voice tinged with what Ilara could only interpret as excitement. "The resonance is strong in this one." Within moments, the engineer was covered in his own armor, different in pattern from Ilara's, but clearly of the same origin. He staggered backward, eyes wide behind the faceplate that had formed. "Marcus." Captain Okafor reached for her sidearm instinctively. "What did it do to him?" "The same thing it did to me," Ilara said, watching as the new Guardian adjusted to its host. "It chose him." Marcus's armor retracted from his face, revealing an expression of awe. "I can see everything," he whispered. "The ship's systems, the star patterns, He stopped suddenly, looking directly at Ilara. "I can see the darkness. It's real. And it's coming." "The awakening accelerates," Ilara's Guardian commented. "This was foreseen. Where there is one inheritor, others will follow." Captain Okafor looked between them, confusion and concern warring on her face. "Someone needs to explain what's happening. Now." Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarms activated. On the main view screen, multiple vessels appeared, dropping out of faster-than-light travel, the angular, predatory shapes of Vorkan warships. "They tracked us," the medical officer realized. "They must have placed a beacon on our hull." Marcus moved to one of the control interfaces, his hands moving with newfound certainty. 7 ships, heavily armed. They're charging weapons. Ilara felt the Guardian's knowledge flowing through her mind, battle strategies and tactical options presenting themselves. "We can outrun them." "This ship." "No," Marcus interrupted, his own Guardian apparently providing similar insights. "There's something else coming. Something larger." The view screen shifted, focusing on a distortion forming at the edge of the system, a rift in space like a wound in reality itself. Through it emerged a vessel of impossible scale, a construct of darkness that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Herald, both Guardians communicated simultaneously to their hosts. an advanced scout of the darkness. Is that what the Trelawneyans fought? Ilara whispered. One aspect of many. The Vorkin ships had also detected the new arrival. Their formation scattered, weapons now targeting the Herald's vessel instead. They don't know what they're facing, Captain Okafor said grimly. Those ships will be slaughtered. As if confirming her words, the Herald's vessel emitted a pulse of energy unlike anything Ilara had ever seen. Not a beam or a projectile, but a wave that passed through the lead Vorkin ship. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship simply disintegrated, breaking apart into constituent atoms. The remaining Vorkin vessels began to retreat, but the Herald pursued, inexorable and patient. We have to help them, Marcus said, surprising everyone. They may be enemies, but they don't deserve that fate. Ilara nodded, the Guardian's consciousness in agreement. No one does. But how? There are only two of us. There will be more, her Guardian assured her, but for now we must awaken the Forge. The Forge. Beneath the surface of this world lies another Guardian facility, one capable of creating the weapons needed to combat the Herald. Ilara looked at Captain Okafor and the medical officer. We need to get your crew to safety, then activate the Forge. My crew stays with me, Okafor said firmly. And whatever this Forge is, if it can stop that thing from reaching human space, we're helping. The descent to the planet's surface was rapid, the Guardian's ship effortlessly navigating through the atmosphere, while the Herald continued its methodical destruction of the Vorkin fleet. Ilara could feel the ancient enemy's attention beginning to turn toward them, a malevolent awareness that recognized the Guardians for what they were. The ship landed in a valley surrounded by dense forest, near what appeared to be a sheer cliff face. As they disembarked, both Ilara and Marcus approached the rock wall, their armors guiding them to place their hands on specific points. The entire cliff face shimmered and dissolved, revealing a massive doorway leading into darkness. The Forge has slept for 30,000 years, Ilara said, knowledge flowing from her Guardian. It needs inheritors to reactivate it. Inside, the facility was vast, a cathedral-like space filled with dormant machinery, manufacturing systems designed to produce weapons capable of fighting the darkness. As Ilara and Marcus moved deeper, their armor interfacing with the ancient systems, lights began to activate, power flowing once more. Captain Okafor and the medical officer followed, wide-eyed at the scale of the technology surrounding them. If humanity had found this place first, Okafor murmured, we would have advanced centuries overnight. That's part of the problem, Ilara explained. Technology without understanding is dangerous. The Trelawneyans left these facilities dormant for a reason. They had to be awakened by those who would use them responsibly. At the heart of the Forge, they found a central chamber. In its center stood a third pedestal, holding another Guardian armor. Is this for me? The medical officer asked hesitantly. Ilara looked at her Guardian for guidance, but the answer came from within her own understanding. The Guardians choose their inheritors. We don't choose them. As they watched, the third armor began to pulse, responding to something, but not to anyone present. Others come, both Guardians communicated. The call has been sent. The awakening spreads. Above them, they could feel the Herald's presence drawing closer, its massive vessel entering the atmosphere in pursuit. We need to activate the defense systems, Marcus said urgently, moving to what appeared to be a control center. Ilara joined him, their Guardians working in concert now, guiding their hands over interfaces that responded to their touch. Ancient weapons hummed to life, not based on destruction, but on containment and rejection, designed to force the darkness back rather than simply obliterate it. It won't be enough, Ilara realized as data flowed through her mind, not with just two Guardians. The Forge requires more to reach full power. Captain Okafor stepped forward. What can we do? There must be some way to help. Before Ilara could answer, the facility's sensors detected new arrivals, ships entering the atmosphere, smaller than the Herald's vessel, but moving with purpose. Human ships, dozens of them, responding to a signal neither Ilara nor Marcus had consciously sent. How did they find us? Marcus wondered. The awakening calls to those who can hear, his guardian explained. Across stars, across minds, the resonance spreads. The first of the new vessels landed outside the forge. From it emerged more humans, scientists, explorers, colonists. And as they entered the facility, drawn by some instinct they couldn't name, the remaining guardians began to stir. One by one, more armors awakened, choosing their inheritors from among the newcomers. Each bonding strengthened the forge, more systems coming online, more power building. It's like they were waiting for this moment. Captain Okafor said, watching a young pilot approach one of the guardians with wonder in her eyes. But how could humans be compatible with technology created by an alien species that disappeared millennia before we even left Earth? Ilara understood now, the knowledge unfurling in her mind like a flower opening to the sun. Because we weren't chosen for what we are, she said quietly. We were chosen for what we could become. Above them, the Herald's vessel had positioned itself directly over the forge, darkness spreading from it like a stain across the sky. But now, with each new guardian that awakened, the ancient defenses grew stronger. The medical officer approached Ilara, eyes wide with realization. The Vorkin. They've been studying Trillonian sites for centuries, but the technology never responded to them. That's why they were so desperate to capture you. You proved their theories wrong. Ilara nodded. And now they're caught between us and the darkness. They don't understand that we're fighting for them too. The forge had fully awakened now. 12 guardians joined in purpose, their combined consciousness directing the ancient machinery. Energy began to build, not destructive but transformative, a counter to the Herald's corrupting influence. It begins, Ilara's guardian communicated, not just to her, but to all the inheritors now. The first stand against the returning darkness. There will be many battles to come, but humanity will not face them alone. As the Herald's attack began, a wave of anti-energy that sought to unravel the very fabric of matter, the forge responded. From the heart of the facility rose a pillar of light, expanding outward in a dome that encompassed the entire valley. Where the darkness touched this shield, it sizzled and recoiled, unable to penetrate. Ilara stood at the center of it all, her mind linked with the other guardians, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. This was only the beginning, a first skirmish in what would become a war for survival itself. But as she looked around at the humans who had answered the call, who had been found worthy of becoming inheritors, she felt something the guardian recognized as hope. We were never alone, she said, understanding at last. The Trillonians didn't just leave us their technology. They left us their legacy, their purpose. In orbit above them, more rifts were opening, the Herald calling for reinforcements. But across the galaxy, other Guardian facilities were awakening, responding to the threat. The battle for the future had begun, and humanity, so recently emerged from its cradle, had been called to stand at the forefront. The darkness comes, her guardian reminded her, but so does the light. Ilara nodded, watching as the newly bonded guardians gathered around her, ready for whatever came next. Then we'll meet it together. Behind them, the forge continued its work, preparing the weapons and knowledge humanity would need for the struggle ahead. The Trillonians had chosen well in their inheritors, a species young enough to adapt, curious enough to learn, and stubborn enough to never surrender, even against the darkness between stars. The first battle was about to begin, and humanity had been found worthy.